Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dallas International Festival. Film Festival. My name is Peter Simek. I am the arts editor with D Magazine, and this is the Front Row interview stage. We've been up here for every night since the beginning of the fest, and this is our last night, and it's a great way to end it because we have the great Peter Weller and Angie Bolling from Robocop, of course. And Robocop is going to be playing on Saturday night, and it's a 25th anniversary reunion. So thank you guys so much for joining us. And we have another little guest up here. Peter, do you want to tell us who?
This is Theodore Mark Gerald Francesco Weller. 4 names, 1 kid. 7 months old. And first and only kid so far. And first and only wife forever there. Sherry. But I want to say hi to Angie, because Angie's my great friend.
Hi, how y'all doing? I'm the the flashback wife of Mrs. Robocop, so, and I will always be forever known as that. So, we're glad to be here, and glad y'all could be here too. Thanks for coming.
Well, we're so happy to have Mr. and Mrs. Robocop on stage, and I wanted to start kind of looking back.
Mr. and Mrs. Murphy.
Well, actually, maybe that's a good part to start. I heard a story that when you were on set, you were so sort of in the method in this role that you were making everyone refer to you as Robocop, even off camera.
No. When I was in that costume, everyone referred to me as Robo. Yeah, that's true. What am I saying no for? Yes, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. But there was a whole sort of caged, kind of contained, remarkable zeitgeist going on when you had that costume on, and 4 or 5 people, including a 7-month-old, trying to steal a microphone from you, upstaged always. But 4 or 5 people working on you constantly, like a Formula One team, like a racing team, and subsequently it just dissuaded the usual sort of, hey, Peter, how you doing? Because once I was in that, 6 months of mime and voice training and the whole thing, and then once you had that thing on, you didn't want to go like, hey, Peter, you want to play a round of golf, so, yeah.
Tell them how hot it got in there.
Yeah, it was also, it was one of the most dreadful summers of Dallas, too. It was 110 degrees usually outside, and inside was 120 degrees, so. And the suit, yeah.
And then you're wearing the suit, which is tons of pounds. Well, I mean, how did the role jump out to you? Because you're starting in a situation where you're living in New York, you're members of the Actors Studio, and you get this role offer that is come to Dallas in the middle of the summer and wear this crazy suit. And it's already been offered or considered for someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I think a lot of actors, they see, I'm going to act as a robot. That almost sounds like I'm not going to act for a while. What about the role said, this is something I can really take somewhere?
Well, the telling distinction was, first of all, Paul Verhoeven, because I'd seen all of his movies, and I knew that Paul Verhoeven was connected to it. It had something to do with a opera, some world canvas of something important, and some personal tragic comedy, because that's all he's interested in. He's not really interested in soap opera or, gizmos or whatever. He's really interested in personal stories set against the backdrop of horror. And so I knew it would be good just because he was involved. But you want to come and get Teddy, honey? Let's get Sherry. Come on up. Come up and say hello to Angie. Did you ever meet Angie Bolling?
We just met.
And did you meet Peter of D Mag? Okay. There's. Yeah. All right. There goes the boots.
It's got to have the boots.
And that was that. It was Verhoeven. I knew there was be something fascinating about it, and I read it. Indeed, it was funny, and it was sad, and it was mythic. And more importantly, though, it had to do with, it's prescient. It's actually way ahead of its time, because I was interviewed about it 3 or 4 years ago by a lot of third world country media people who see it as a anthropological. You could look at it in terms of all of the third world demonstrations against the WTO, the privatization of the business of the world, such as that, the personal identity is stolen. And that's remarkable in a day like today. That's 26 years ago, and that's a problem that's going on now. In the face of the remarkable money and galvanized collective thrust of industrial nations and who's suffering of the third world, and essentially the rape, looting, and pillaging of the third world. There you have it metaphorically in Robocop. That's not what you wanted to ask me, though, was it? You wanted to ask me how much the suit weighed. I know.
Well, and to continue with that a little bit, I mean, when you were making the movie at that time, 25 years ago, since we are looking back, I mean, was there a sense of that was, that it was going to have this resonance or have that kind of resonance over a long period of time?
No. Look at something like, okay, corporations privatize the police department such as that the illicit contraband that they also own, will be passed unnoticed. This is so. It's such an unwieldy plot. Plot by the alien universe called corporate world that nobody thought about. I only took the part because it was the great transformation of a man who had his identity taken away from him. And subsequently, it's a story of personal resurrection. I didn't see this social backdrop. As a matter of fact, I didn't even thought about it until I was accosted by 1 week of publicity in Warner Brothers offices in London about this particular resonance that it has with the theft of identity. And I was like dumbstruck. I didn't have any answers for anybody. I had to go do my homework very quickly. So I wouldn't look like a bludgeoning orange juice head idiot from Malibu actor, who just walked off the boat, has nothing to say, like most of them do. And I include myself in that group. So.
Well, Angie, how did you get involved in the production? I mean, it was you were here
Take it away,
locally.
Thank you, Peter.
All right.
Well, I'm a local actress in Dallas, and I'm celebrating my 30th year with the Kim Dawson Agency. And I went in for the audition. That's right. That's right. But, I just do a lot of work here as a local actress, commercials and film and voiceover. And I was called in for this audition, and I think that they had someone in place to play your wife. The rumor I heard was they had, I don't know, they never told me, but they said someone was here and she sat around for a while and had to go back to L.A., and so they had a casting. That's what I heard, but I didn't hear it from Paul Verhoeven, so I don't know if it's true.
I never heard that at all. And I thought I heard all of them.
No, you had that helmet on.
Or maybe I had that helmet on. I couldn't understand. Yeah, you're right. But I never heard that one.
Yeah, well, that's about, I just got called in, and I was lucky enough to get the part. And it was a little bit of an unusual audition because I had to look right into the camera and walk right up to the camera and tell the camera I loved it and all of that. And, so it was great. And, got to do the second movie and the third movie, which you didn't do.
No, I didn't do the third
that.
one. I didn't even want to do the second one, but they offered me a paycheck I couldn't refuse, and subsequently I bought a house. But we had real scenes together in the second one, yeah. But I was sort of, Frank Miller, a great writer, and Irv Kershner, bless his heart, in the second one. But when I read the second one, I knew it didn't have a third act. It didn't have a third. Not to denigrate anything you've done, but it was a great plot, but it didn't have a third act. Whereas the first one is classic because the third act is the thing that makes all great third acts of all great movies, and maybe is what makes the movie alive to this day is that third act. Yeah. No, but when they offered me a third one, I was off. I was going taxi, but so just like Dean Martin said about Jerry Lewis, I was happy to join it, and I was happy to leave it. So.
Well, one of the stories of
Can somebody get me a double espresso with a little shot? You're going to go to Starbucks, get me not you, honey, but somebody can. Really, a double shot in a small non-fat latte. Anyone out there, there's major money in it for you. Double shot, small, non-fat latte. I see no one going.
There's
now,
a beer.
Honey, I don't do alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, or men, and I don't blame anybody who does. But
Well, one of the stories of you on set is being in that suit. That's sort of one of the big dramas of making this film. And part of that was you had a movement coach and who had a mime
Brilliant
trainer.
guy. Just talked to him yesterday.
Yeah. Well, what made you think that? Well, I need to enlist someone with mime training for this role. And what was that sort of process like?
Well, I talked to Verhoeven when I was hired and said, you know, Verhoeven had no idea. He has sort of an idea about how the movement should be, but I said, look, it's really going to take like some sort of stylized movement. He agreed, so they just left me on my own. Him and Mike Medavoy left me on my own to find my own guy. I'd taken a lot of dance, a lot of ballet, a lot of jazz, and a modicum of mime as a young actor, but I interviewed a lot of pantomimes, and they were really good teachers at pantomime, but I needed something else. So Moni Yakin, who's head of the movement department and is a great mime, but he's also into dance and theater and a lot of other things. I met him at Juilliard, and I forget how he got his name, but he said, you know, this is not really just mime. This is going to be something else. This is sort of a theatrical, this is an operatic thing behind it, and subsequently went with him, and he's a dear friend to this day.
Well, Angie, what was you've been in Dallas for 30 years acting? I mean, what was a lot of looking back? A lot of people have a nostalgia for that period of time when there was a lot of movie production
Right,
stuff going
back
on.
in the 80s, yeah.
Right, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
how does that compare today to where we are and sort of how have things?
Well, it's really different. It's just the community's different. There are more independent films that are made now. You know, the commercials are a little different now. Also, there's so much I could say about it. My head's kind of spinning with all the everything. I don't really know where to begin. But there used to be a lot more of a community as far as the film business, as far as film and commercial and industrial work. You could work on a film. You might do 1 or 2 days, and you'd work with the same crew that you might work on the next week on a commercial. And so you would see the same people a lot. And it was kind of like a big family, and that's really changed. That's what I've noticed the most, and that's what I miss. I still see some of the old people, but it's not as much, and things are kind of spread out. And a lot of new young people have come in, of course, which is great. More independent films, but it's just in those ways, I think. It's a community shift, I think.
Was that sort of the environment for Robocop? Was there a lot of that sort of same community that was moving around from project to project?
Yes, when I went to work on Robocop, I already knew a lot of the crew members. And, of course, a lot of people came in from L.A. and New York, but the core crew were from Dallas. And they were a lot of the guys that I'd worked on in commercials and industrials and everything else I've been working on for the few years I had been here before that. So it really made it a lot of fun. And but I always felt sorry for Peter because he was just so hot in that suit. You know, I don't know how he did it.
Well, what was he like
great.
on set? I mean,
Well,
being
he was
in
great.
that suit
We weren't around each other a lot on that first movie because I was, you know, just the flashback wife. So we just had a few little scenes together. But he was great. He was always nice to me. I just felt sorry for him because he was just, you know, he had he had the towel stuck in, you know. Remember having all that and I think he was just, you know, I just think he felt miserable most of the time, you know, didn't you?
You know, I didn't feel miserable, really, because the discipline of the thing was like I was on macrobiotic diet and practicing for the New York Marathon and really had my, you know, I was up at 4 or 5 in the morning every day running. So by that time, I was a stoic. I was a full-fledged stoic. It was, they had air conditioning ducts. Remember, they'd bring in those air conditioning, the industrial air conditioning ducts to cool me down at a distance because if I got too cold, I'd get pneumonia. But yeah. But
well, in addition to the suit itself, I mean, what kind of preparation did you put into sort of the role and having to sort of work with the suit because it's covering up so much of your body, and how do you take that into
I never
account?
thought for a second that I would be penalized in any way visually by being inside that suit. I always figured that if I had something going on with this character that somebody'd get what I was saying. So 6 months with Moni, the suit had its particular dilemma according to the movement. We adjusted the movement, slowed down the movement, made it much more articulated to fit the suit. And by the time we were off and running with the suit, I was the guy. I got to say, I got so heady about it that, and I was training for the New York Marathon that Verhoeven let me out at the last week in Pittsburgh to go run in New York. But in Dallas, we would wrap on a Friday night. The next day, I'd sleep late. I'd go dancing. I'd usually go dancing. I just remember going dancing a lot. I'd go to discotheques and clubs and so forth and dance. And then on Sunday, I had these long runs, and I was rather depressed. And I was really depressed when that movie wrapped, because if you get in a groove like that, a particular groove of that kind of physical discipline, and then all of a sudden it's over, and you have no way to channel or no place to channel, that's sort of that particular force, is a dynamic, a personal energy, get bummed out. The only option is to, I don't know what, go to Paris or serious narcotics. Being that I was done with narcotics long before that movie, I went to Paris. I loved Paris. Yes, Paris. I went to Paris immediately. I went to Madrid and Paris, and then I was telling my lovely wife the other night, my wife just threw me a 65th birthday party, surprise birthday party, 2 months in advance. And that's the way to, if anybody wants to throw a surprise birthday party, do it 2 months in advance. They'll never know. They'll never know. They'll never suspect a thing. That's the way to do it. 320 people flown in from all over, including this town. But anyway, she brought in flamenco dancers. Oh, wow. Like the real deal flamenco. Because right after Robocop, I was so nuts that I went to Spain and I spent 2 months following all the flamenco tours through all the pueblos blancos of the España Sud, through Andalusia and Cádiz and Cáceres and Sevilla, man. And that was the only way I wound down off that movie.
Has there been any other role that's had a similar?
Kelly, you had your minions, and I know you have many of them. Who's Miss Ruth?
There you go.
Where's Miss Ruth? That's a plot. Miss Ruth, you're so sweet. I love that blouse, too. Wow, she's elegant, Miss Ruth. All right, good. Now I'm loaded.
Well, you mentioned winding down from this role. Has there been any other similar roles that have taken that much to kind of wind down?
No,
yeah.
None, and there never will be. Naked Lunch was really really a book that I'd followed for a long time. As a matter of fact, I didn't do RoboCop 3 because I was going to do Naked Lunch. But Naked Lunch is a book I'd lived with for 40 years, and I was in a dastardly period of my life that Verhoeven said, this role seems very accessible to you. And I don't know if I could do either one of those roles now or would want to. I would want to ever go to that. Right now I'm having a very happy time. Very happy time. Yes, with my 7.5-month-old son who's like mini me. Or I'm mini him or something. I think I'm mini him is what the real deal is. And my beautiful wife. And, directing a lot of television and working with J.J. Abrams right now in Star Trek, and I don't know if somebody said, hey, put on a suit for 6 months and do mine for 6 months, go on macrobiotic diet, lose 40 pounds, and I'd say, I'd call a cab, I think. Yeah.
It's over. Is this a role for both of you guys or a movie that has followed you in any way that sort of has sort of been hard?
Yes, here we are.
Yeah.
Oh,
here we are in Dallas, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's fun. It's been fun for me because, being a local actress and not a celebrity and not just being a working actor in a small market. When I tell people I'm an actor, I'm like, well, I've never seen you in anything. What have you done? Because I know I've done a lot of stuff, but I'm a working actor in small parts. And I'll say, oh, have you ever heard of Robocop? Oh yeah. So it's been really good for me to give people a name recognition for that. So it's been fun for me it's more fun for people to know that than anything else. I guess people like to have a little celebrity in their lives or something, but it's fun. It's fun for me. Maybe not so much for Peter, but I don't know.
It's interesting you say that because Jack Nicholson, for instance, look at the realm, look at the context, the body of the corpus of that guy's work, And yet, you know, kids seem today say, "Oh, the Joker! It's the Joker! It's the Joker!" You know, and it's like, you know, you get labeled for that. So you get, live with it. It's just great to be working. It's always great to be working. You know, if you're surviving and you're working in the movies or theater, man, you know, you've conquered it. So, like, there's a day, like everything, like even Humphrey Bogart. I doubt if it's true for Humphrey Bogart. He said, like, you're lucky if you make 3 movies that outlive you. You're really fortunate if you only make 1. And there is a day, there is a time when they will forget you. And this particular day and age, in the internet and so forth, where I think Andy Warhol's 15 minutes of fame has been reduced to 30 seconds. I have to say, man, I'm finishing a PhD in Italian Renaissance art. I was in a PhD German class, and I was giving a report on a short story called "The Judgment and His the Judge and the Hangman and His Judge," and it was made into a film by Maximilian Schell, great Oscar-winning Maximilian Schell, Judgment at Nuremberg, starring Jacqueline Bisset, Robert Shaw, John Voight, and a great director, Martin Ritt, who directed some great movies, including Paul Newman's greatest film. I'm talking to 26 American kids, 28 years old. None of them have seen Robert Shaw movie. I have to say Jaws. Two kids have seen Jaws. 2 kids have seen Jaws. None of them heard of Jacqueline Bisset, one of the great beauties of all time. They only know John Voight because he's like Angelina Jolie's dad. And forget about Martin Ritt, because I then said he directed Paul Newman, and 1 guy in a class of 30 had ever seen a Paul Newman movie. 1 guy. So
Somewhat
that's how
depressing.
But that's how fast it goes.
Yeah.
You know, it's a day and age of lickety-split info, man. So we're lucky to be working, man.
That's right. We are very lucky. But I think you're right. It's 30 seconds of fame, you know, and that's about it. So.
Well, thanks, guys, so much for joining us. I really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Peter.
It was fun.
On that depressing note.
On that note.
Well,
right?
no, on a good note, because you live here, and I worked here, and I have many friends here, including my friend Jim Mahoney, who just brought us here, my wife and I here, formerly the Dallas Morning News editor of photography, and a lot of buddies, and a lot of people in Fort Worth who are friends. My parents lived in Fort Worth. I went to school at North Texas, now University of North Texas. Why they made it University of North Texas? I love North Texas State. So Texas is my home, really, and let me just close with how what a remarkable state it is. You know, in fact, in face of the depressing economy, in fact, in face of all the pressures of living in a 21st century modern world, you know, Texas shines, and I'm always happy to come back to Texas, man. So there.
Glad to have you back.
Texas. Well, thanks for coming back, Peter.
And all my high school buddies in San Antonio. Listen, we have a high school reunion like every year in San Antonio. And this party, how many people of San Antonio showed up? It's a good 10 or 12, right? Out of our 85 graduating class at Alamo Heights. So I love San Antonio, too. I'm going to give it to you, Angie, because you're the native Texan.
Yeah, right. I'm the native, right? Well, not really. I'm from Alabama, but yeah.
You're not a native? That's the first thing they ask you in Texas. I actually was smoking a cigar at the Grand Avenue in New York, and the owner comes over and says, "This is a guy from Texas." I look up, he says, he works for, I don't know, some corporation out of Houston. He goes, "You're from Texas?" "Yeah." Right out of his mouth. Next thing he asks, "You native?" I go,
It's
"No."
the real judge.
No, I moved here from Wisconsin after 4 weeks. And he just went like this. Oh. I want to say, listen, man, the Toltecs are the only natives here, asshole.
Well, what's the old saying? I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could. That's it. So we did. We got here as fast as we could.
You know, Dan Jenkins was saying about Texas, right? Sitting in New York, you know how you find Texas. You go south till you smell it, and west till you step in it. I love Texas, though. And only Texans can tell that on themselves, you know? Because New Yorkers ain't got that sense of humor, I'm sorry. And Los Angelinos got no sense of humor at all, so.
That's probably a more perfect way to end it then. Yeah, thanks.